If you want to excel and be like the best of the best at what you do, I think you have to kind of be around other people that are really going to push you to that next level.
Meet Isaac Hetzeroni, aka the Sourcing Guy. He is the founder and CEO of Imprint Genius. They source, manufacture, and distribute custom merchandise for modern brands worldwide. He has traveled the world sourcing products and has built a huge personal brand in the process. This episode is for anyone looking to understand how networking can change your life forever and turn your personal mission into a global business. How powerful has networking been for you?
Social media is the most powerful networking tool you can ever have. If we look at revenue within my business, majority of revenue has come from referrals. It's the networking, it's the people that you meet, it's like the personal relationships that really like brings in the dollars. I always thought that like I would need to have 1 million followers or 1 million subscribers or whatever it is to really like see the fruits of my labor. But after seeing that, if you are able to do something in a very niche scenario or a niche market, you don't need a lot of followers. If you're producing content that's niche specific, it doesn't support the algorithm well, because how the algorithm works is they go,
there's people who kind of build a lifestyle business and there's people who build a business. Where would you put yourself there, and what do you kind of see the differences between the two?
Was I happier when I'm focused on like running a business or running a lifestyle business? Still trying to figure that out. Running a business is one of the best self-development tools that you could have. Can't go and make excuses to anyone, you know, it's only to yourself. Like if you don't do the work, like you aren't gonna get it done and no one's gonna do it for you. The biggest like changes for me have been,
Bro, I wanted to ask you, so obviously you've been in Bali a while now, and how many years have you been kind of coming here?
Almost 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of experience Bali as someone like yourself who's an entrepreneur, you're running a business, you're very sharp and you've got a lot of work to do as well. How do you experience Bali? How's Bali been for you as an entrepreneur, building, growing, maintaining a business, scaling your business, network, all of that's like, what's Bali been like for perhaps people who haven't been here, or perhaps people who view Bali in a certain way? As an entrepreneur, what's the experience of living in Bali been like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been an amazing experience, especially from like a lifestyle perspective. I feel like I have a much more balanced life. I like that my day is mostly, you know, open, where I can kind of have my own day, and I do most of my calls at night because I'm on US time. I like the people, like that's probably the best part, like meeting people like you and all the other amazing entrepreneurs throughout the island. And, you know, being able to really live, I guess, above your means, you know, you can live this like amazing lifestyle and you don't really have as much wants, which, and I think there's pros and cons to that, right? Yeah. So like the pros to it is you feel like, especially if you can get to like a decent amount of money, you know, not like anything too crazy, but like you make a decent salary considered like Western standard wise. Yeah. You have everything you ever want. You have a nice house, you have staff, you have high quality food, you have nice gyms, right? Maybe you get yourself a big scooter, whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's like the status, like X Max.
Yeah, X Max. My mate calls it an Ego Max. Yeah. He's like, oh, you got an Ego Max now. I'm like, yes, I have. Like, and it's red.
Oh yeah. But I mean, the only issue with that is like it's good, I think, for your mental health. And not being in that, especially like I'm from Miami, like it's always have a nicer boat, always have a nicer car, whatever it is. Your apartment could be a house, whatever it is. But then you also get very complacent and you feel like, why do I need to work harder and I think that like that's good. Like now you're like kind of happy, but I think that you also find happiness naturally in doing the hard things and in seeing growth and having the challenge, as well as being around other people that are also going through the challenge of like hustling and working and trying to build something themselves. So I find that I have less energy here, and I'm less inspired to like really, really work hard and make a lot more money. But I have better conversations here. I have closer friendships here. I have more like time to myself here to really be like, to internally grow. So that's why like right now I'm going back to the US for like 3 to 4 months. I'm mostly in New York, right? Where it's like the max, right? The max amount of stimulus to kind of give me that bug again and get me excited and get back in the grind, and then have a sprint of that and then come back and like focus on myself again.
I love that, man. I've heard you say before that there's there's people who kind of build a lifestyle business and there's people who build a business. Where would you put yourself there? And what do you kind of see the differences between the two, pros and cons? And you mentioned there that like we grow and we get the fulfillment, happiness through doing hard stuff, through, like forcing yourself to level up. So how's perhaps like a business been that for you? And what's your kind of experience there between like the lifestyle business and the business? And I'm just curious to hear you talk on that.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I've been thinking about it a lot. Like, was I happier when I'm focused on like running a business or running a lifestyle business? Like, you might think like, oh wow, like I'm living this like amazing life. I'm in Bali. I'm happy. Like, and this lifestyle business is supporting me, and like I've had like amazing experiences and time. But do I feel like as fulfilled as when we had a big office like in Florida and 15 people, and every day I'm going in and there's that camaraderie and there's that growth and there's that hustle and the in-person business, in-person sales, and flying out to another state to go and do a sales meeting, and try to close a big deal. Like, where was I happier? I'm still trying to figure that out. It's I'm happy in both scenarios, but it's like, I think at the age that we're at, we kind of have to decide, you have to decide what the type of person you want to be. And like, if you want to excel and be like the best of the best at what you do, I think you have to kind of be around other people that are really going to push you to that next level. So I that's why like I'm going to go back to New York and kind of feel things out again. I'm very happy here again, but like, I don't feel like I'm pushing myself as hard as I can. And I think that's the difference between like a lifestyle business and a business. Now I think I'm way happier than a lot of my friends that are running businesses that are like stuck in like a random state in the US and they aren't able to like enjoy the lifestyle part. But I think that you have to do a little bit of both to be happy.
I like that, man. It's interesting, right? Like, look, you've got to solve the money problem. That's got to come first, whatever stage you're at. Like, okay, solve the money problem. Then you perhaps have a little bit more time to ask those deeper questions. Who am I? What's going on? What do I like? And I don't know, something I've been kind of, and one of the reasons for this podcast as well, it's like, it turns into, well, what do I want to, it's like a project. It's a mission, right? It's like, well, what do I want to put out? What do I really want to, just like leave? And, my kind of content on social media, all this sort of stuff changed when I was like, okay, it's just all about like the mission now. It's just all about education, getting it out, transferring knowledge in the most effective and efficient way possible, through writing, through these conversations as well. And it's like, okay, that's something that it's going to force me to grow. It's going to force me to become like a better communicator, all this sort of stuff. And I found like a lot of, fulfillment there. So I'm curious, like kind of with your experience of how long have you been running your business?
8 years.
8 years. Awesome. How has that been? What internal growth? Like, how's it been like a self-development tool as well? Like, what internal growth? Like, if you look at yourself 8 years ago, what are some of the things where you've had to level up, perhaps internally, perhaps mentally? What are some of, like, if we were to look at you 8 years ago versus where you are now, like what shifts would we see in you as a person? And where have you kind of leveled up?
Yeah, I mean, I think running a business is one of the best self-development tools that you could have, right? Because you're in so many different scenarios and you're put under a lot of pressure and you essentially can't go and make excuses to anyone. It's only to yourself. Like, if you don't do the work, like, you aren't going to get it done and no one's going to do it for you. So the biggest like changes for me have been, I think, on emotional intelligence, being able to communicate better with people, but also know that every single person is different, right? Every single person, you have to be a different boss, essentially, to every employee. You have to understand how to listen a lot more. And you have to just be you have to be the best version of yourself as often as you can, because you're a leader in that scenario. And I think that in the beginning of the business, I was a lot more irrational. I think that I was a lot more emotional. I think that I was maybe I would be more aggressive toward my leadership style. And I've seen that over the time that the best way to lead people and lead a team, again, is through vulnerability, is through emotional intelligence, and just being like a good person as often as possible, and really just put yourself in the shoes of that employee. And I think that especially when you, like for me, I never really had a job, right? Like I just kind of started my company. I've always been doing my own thing. I've never like worked at a big organization. So I never was put in the position of the employee. And I think that when you don't do that, you don't necessarily see how you are, like how to be a good boss, and how that what you might say might affect the person in that exact seat. So in conclusion, I think that throughout my career so far, I've become a lot more
empathetic. Yeah. That's so interesting. I kind of had a question around this then, because no one cares about your business as much as you. It's normal, right? Like you have employees, like they will have their own incentives, usually like financially driven. Perhaps they want to level up some skills in a certain area. So my kind of question was, how have you found, I know you have very high standards from talking to people you work with and just sort of experiencing you for the time we've known each other. I know you have very high standards for everything you do. So how have you found communicating those standards? How are there any tools or techniques or ways of communicating that you've used to inspire people to kind of match those same standards? I'm curious how that's played out.
I think that core values and setting like the core values and framework for whatever you do or your organization is really important from a fundamental perspective. I think that we're like ingrained in our mind, especially from like a religious perspective. I look at like, I'm not a very religious person, but I think religion really shaped our psychology and like the world around us. And we have the 10 Commandments, right? And we kind of look at like, at least, you look at, that was like the original way of following, the original rules. So if you can set up core values for your organization and the standards, and you put them up on the pedestal of being like, these are what we stand for. This is what we believe in, and everything is related to this. Then every single time someone does not meet the standards that were very, very clear, that are big, commandments up in the up on the top of the mountain. You don't have to get mad at them. You don't say, hey, you did a bad job here. You say, you didn't follow the core values. Like, our number one core value is quality, right? As a core value. Did this meet the quality standards? That is like our number one most important thing. So now you're not getting mad at the employee, or you're not like being aggressive to them. They're self-reflecting themselves and saying, wow, I did not meet the standard of this organization, and I feel bad on my own, and I'm going to think about this next time. I think that's a really important way to lead.
Such an interesting frame that you've kind of used religion there as well. And I think there's something really interesting about the 10 Commandments, let's say. I think a lot of people, they view kind of religion as is very structured, and it's like rules that if you break, you get judged on. And if you actually look at kind of the 10 Commandments, particularly the first two, it's not so much that, hey, do this and then you'll be judged and punished by a God who's going to like smite you, which is controlled by fear. But actually it's like, hey, here's a framework for living. If you follow this, it's about you. This is like, you're letting your own standards slip. And I think particularly something I found as well with kind of bringing people in to the team, it's like, if I can associate those values with like their own personal wants and needs, and it's like, hey, you slip this standard here, that's going to affect you and what you're working towards. And kind of like aligning like whatever I'm trying to build with like what you're trying to build as well. And I think it's a really interesting like reframe, kind of like you were so right, like religion has absolutely been cemented in the way we think and the structures that have been built. I think if we can kind of like reframe it slightly around like, but this is for you. It's not something you're going to be judged again. Like you said, it's like, it offers you a chance to reflect on everything. So kind of like with some of that in mind, and obviously like, I know that you kind of understand a lot of these deeper philosophies. Is there any kind of like underlying motivation for, what's making you continue building your business? Why do you want to improve your life? Why does it fucking matter? Like, why do you want to get better? Like, what's the point?
Yeah. I think that's the whole thing with Bali is like you get so complacent. You're like, why? You have that consistent, like, why am I doing this anymore? Like, do I really need to keep on working these like 10, 12-hour days, and hustling, putting myself through so much stress and all the gray hairs? But for me, it's, I have goals that I want to hit. And there's a couple like big things that I'm really like passionate about that I'm working towards. One is, education for sourcing. Like I really think that it's one of the most important things that people should be learning if they are within their entrepreneurial career, within their business career, and it's something that's just never taught. And I think that people they could lose their life savings, right? Ordering products and getting scammed online. They're making bad quality product, which is just a waste for the entire world. Right? It's hindering the world ability to produce product and be creative. And I think that understanding the fundamentals of sourcing is giving people the keys to potentially build that amazing business and unlock creativity with like physical product. And we're in this very digital world.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of beauty in like producing really amazing products. So I'm really passionate about like our agency and what we do and working with the clients that we do is that I'm able to like make things that people get excited about and help take people's like visions and turn it into real product.
What's the knock-on effect there from all the way from focusing on quality, people being educated about the quality of the products? What's the knock-on effect for the business owner, the employees, and then all the way down to like the consumer? Why does having an education of quality, what does that change in the experience kind of like throughout the different tiers there?
I think focusing on like our agency, like we only source quality product because I think that we're in this like world of abundance and like free items and like cheap. But I think that is not a good framework for anything in life. I think everything you should do should be at the highest standard. You should put yourself at the highest standard. You should be eating quality foods. You should be spending quality time, having quality conversations, and appreciating, the quality things that are going to last the test of time. So I think that there's like if the whole world is focused on quality as much as possible, I think we're better off as a society.
Yeah, I fully agree, man. It's like, I mean, one of my big things is like, one of the things we've lost from society is kind of a sense of awe and like appreciation, like a sense of music can make you feel awe and inspired. A quality product can do that. Mate, I was complimenting you on your watch. Like, I love that watch. And first time we met, I like spotted it immediately because it's on the list. And, but an item, it can inspire you and it can fuel that kind of like creative energy within you. It's like, I love this thing. And it's not like you're materialistic. It's like, it was well made. It was well crafted.
Yeah.
Like someone put love and care into this. There's a Greek word called meraki, which doesn't have a direct English translation, but it basically means like to leave your heart and soul in your work. So you might say like your grandma's cooking had meraki in it, like she left her heart and soul in it.
Yeah.
But I believe with business and I believe with quality products, it's not just, it's a material item. It's like, it's a manifestation of someone's love and care into something. And then if you can appreciate that, you get filled up with like energy to kind of put more of that out and kind of, be inspired that way. I know you like to make some custom items. Is that correct? I think I've found out that you have like a nice little custom bag as well you've made. You're curious about that, like where that's come from. And
yeah, I mean, I really enjoy like making things for two scenarios. One is that like my whole business is helping people make product. So if I'm not making product myself, I'm not really walking the walk. I like to understand. I think the best way to learn is through making, right? So how am I going to really understand like the specific bamboo fabric unless I'm going in and playing with it and like producing it myself? And if I'm producing a bag, I have to understand. If I'm not going through the iterations of like producing the product, I'm not going to understand. For example, I was making a bag just now. I wanted a bag that was a nice laptop bag. I was taking inspiration from a few different brands. I wanted the perfect bag for myself. But I saw that there was we made a mistake on the weight of the contents of the item, and then being able to essentially the point of tension was too small. So then we went through another iteration and we redid that piece. And bags isn't a huge category for us for sourcing, but it's slowly becoming one.
Yeah.
So now I better understand the fundamentals of making this product and where the product can then, let's say it will last 6 months, but we want a product that's going to last for years and years and years every time we produce. So by me going and having this fun creative process of working with a local artisan here and making this custom bag, I learned more about the fundamentals of like the physics and fundamentals of making a quality product. So if you go to my house, almost all my clothes I made custom with like tailors and stuff like that here, or it's stuff that I brand productions for clients. And it's just and I appreciate it more. Like you know that when you make something yourself, just like when you cook for yourself, right? There's something about it that really you feel in your heart.
Yeah. How do you go about that process? Let's say you're making a custom t-shirt. How do you do it? Are you a good designer? Do you draw it out? Do you take models that you like and sort of say, hey, a bit like this, change? How do you go about actually designing?
I wouldn't call myself a designer in that scenario. I know we have amazing designers on our team, and like those people are like very, very creative in that side of things. Where what we do at our agency, which is a little different from a lot of other agencies, we're really focused on a lot of like simplistic premium manufacturing, utilizing like white labeling solutions. So it's like, how can we take an amazing existing product that's already available and make slight changes to that product to improve it in certain ways, and then go to market with that. By doing that, by going through that process versus building out a full sketch and tech pack and selecting the materials and doing everything from scratch, you cut your costs substantially, you cut your sample iteration substantially, and you typically produce a better product in the end, 9 times out of 10. From my experience running this agency for so long. So that's our philosophy when we're working with clients. It's like, okay, like you want to go and you want to make these shoes. Like, are we going to design these shoes from scratch, or are we going to use a really good base and build upon it? And we see a lot more success doing it that way. So when I'm going through and producing product, a lot of what I'm doing is I'm taking a piece, right? I'm taking a t-shirt I really like. I think the fit was really good. I like the finishings and stitchings. But now we're going to go through a bunch of fabrics and we're going to start testing. And we're going to start seeing, okay, maybe let's try it. Let's make this exact fit, but let's utilize, this modal poly blended fabric that I know is going to fit a certain way. And let's take, another detail from another piece and maybe apply it to this. And you're kind of like Frankensteining together a concept, and it might not work, right? It might not work, but then you learn from that iteration. You are able to kind of, okay, now I know, like, I didn't consider the droopiness of the specific fabric and how it's going to go and how it's going to fit. Or I didn't factor in that, if we make the collar too small and it's this type of looser fabric, once you dry it, it doesn't have enough structure. So again, it's just a really fun, creative process you're able to go through to understand the construction and materials that kind of go into products you're producing.
That's awesome, man. So it's almost like you're finding something that's like almost 80% of the way there. And it's like, okay, this is great, but that extra 20%, that's where the creativity comes in.
And I think that everyone thinks you have to build stuff from scratch. That's like the general understanding of like sourcing product. It's like, okay, I want to go and make a bag. Like, I'm going to go and design a full bag from scratch. And I think so many people just waste so much time and effort doing that versus like what's a lot of times like the main part of a business, especially a physical product business, is like the marketing and how do you present the product, and how it's the small details. I think people lose track of that.
Mate, with working as hard as you do, and you have some long days, and there's a lot going on with running a business. How do you have fun? How do you recenter that? What do you do around Bali, around here? What do you enjoy? What do you do for fun to recharge yourself, or whatever that is?
I love to cook. I find cooking as like a really good, like, relaxing setting. It's one of the few times I feel like I'm pretty addicted to like the stimuli of like my phone and notifications, all that kind of stuff. But for some reason, when I cook, I go into this zone of just complete focus. And it's meditative, you know, because that's what meditation is. It's really just kind of focusing on just one thing. And then you're able to go and then produce something that's like nourishing for you. And you know, it's exactly what you wanted, and you're going to be able to be creative. And I think that people kind of lose track of the reason behind cooking. I think people look at it and they're like, especially here, it's like, oh, well, it costs more and it's gonna take you all this time to go and cook this versus just order on Grab, right?
Yeah.
Just go to the open house and order, you know, which, you know, we do a lot. Most of my meals I still order in, but again, it's about what we were just talking about earlier. It's like about the creation. And I found it very, very
There's
relaxing.
something here in Bali, right? It's like, it is more expensive to cook.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Everyone's like, so cheap. You go to the supermarket, you've spent like double than you would on just one meal getting ingredients. It's quite funny. I wanted to ask there, with kind of having that meditative process, do you do anything else? Do you do any sort of morning meditation? Do you have affirmations? Do you like do a handstand in the morning? Is there something that, you know, like you found that like work? Because hey, everyone's like, they become a nerd for like their morning routines. They're like, that's the answer to all my problems. But when I tend to talk to people, I find that there's usually like one thing gets them there. Sometimes it's just opening up the laptop. Yeah. And like they have something that they do straight away. Yeah. I'm curious like what your flow is to kind of get into the day and get going.
I mean, I'm not going to lie and say that I have a perfect morning routine. I think that there's variance in it, and some days are not the best mornings. Yeah. But for me, like the perfect morning routine is typically just removing the stimuli for at least 30 minutes as I wake up, keeping my phone away, not touching it, allowing myself to really like breathe, do at least like a 5-minute meditation, get some sunlight, and just like digest, like come into the day with a relaxed mind. Versus if you go into the day with already having the stress of all the things to do and all the, especially when you wake up in Bali, right? There was just all this time everyone's been awake. You have all these emails up piled up and fires to put out. It's very easy to wake up, want to check your phone right away to answer, and then just start the day with stress. And that's why like I personally guys really like being in the US as well, because I can wake up very early and get ahead of it in that scenario. And I feel like I have a little more control over my day.
Yeah. I find that with like, that's one of the Bali / Thailand hacks, right? It's like you're kind of left alone for like 6 hours, set everything up, do this, and you can just, as people are waking up in the States or the UK, they've got their tasks they need to do. And then it's just kind of like putting out fires throughout the day. What's the meditation you do? If you don't mind me asking.
I just go through, either do it myself or I go on YouTube and I'll just find like a meditation. I like breath work over meditation. For me, I find it's more effective and it gives me more energy, especially in the morning. I like kind of like dragon's breath type of stuff.
Okay.
And then also I find a lot of meditation also even in the cold plunge. I find that that's also by like going through and doing breath work and meditation specifically there. Again, it's like, I'm very like all over the place. I can be very stressed a lot of times. There's so much to do, so many things I'm trying to manage. I sometimes I say yes too much to things, right? But again, with like the cold plunge, it's just that hyper focus of like because I need to focus on this to stay in this cold plunge. I'm again, just like the cooking, whatever, I go into the flow state of just that focus. Because even if I'm like meditating at home, I find it's still hard for me to like force myself to like truly get into that like state of blankness.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Have you been to Koh Phangan?
Yeah,
you have. Have you been to, there's a gym called, it's like Zantiva?
No, I haven't.
So mate, there's this gym in Koh Phangan and they have one of the best ice baths I've ever done.
Yeah.
It's so cold, man. So it's like a big circle.
Yeah.
They have like a little Buddha statue thing and they like pumping out smoke on it. Real vibe. They got the music. But they literally throw in like a glacier it's like ice blocks like this. And it's just these huge ice blocks. And that's when I first really started getting into the cold plunge. It is cold, man.
Yeah.
Like 3 minutes in there and you've done something. It was so funny. There was this Iranian guy who used to go in every day. And the first time I jumped in, he was in it. And he used to do 20 minutes, bro. And you talk about focusing only on one thing.
Yeah.
First 7 minutes, okay, like he's kind of there and he'll acknowledge you. like a very sort of stern face. By the end of the 20 minutes, he's left his body, bro.
Yeah.
He's like shaking like this. And the first time I saw him, I was like, is he okay? Like asking people, and he's like, yeah, he does it every day. And he'd just like get in there, and his whole body, I don't know if that's actually a good thing to do or not.
Yeah.
But that's maybe kind of, the very extreme version of doing the ice baths. I wanted to ask about you as the sourcing guy. Mm-hmm. When did that come up? Was that very natural, and you're just like, I'm going to be the sourcing guy?
It was, I remember exactly where I was. It was like, I came up with the idea almost 3 years ago. I was in Sri Lanka, like doing like a surf trip, like before I even got to Bali, kind of like on my way there. And I was just really thinking about like realizing that content was this big thing, and building a personal brand was so important. And I had a friend who built a channel called Sourcing with Keon on YouTube. And he was telling me like, yeah, like I only have, at the time it can be 15,000 subscribers, but look at all the business and opportunities that are coming my way. And I was like, wow, I always thought that like I would need to have 1 million followers or 1 million subscribers or whatever it is to really like see the fruits of my labor. But after seeing that, if you are able to do something in a very niche scenario or a niche market, you don't need a lot of followers. So I was like, okay, then might as well start playing around with this. And I was at the time like traveling through the world, visiting factories. So I was like surfing in Sri Lanka and then visiting all the biggest manufacturers in Sri Lanka, then hanging out in Cambodia and then visiting all the factories in Cambodia. So I was doing this kind of like joint trip. I was like, let me start just recording and just playing around with it. And the videos were horrible, like so bad. But the one thing I got right was the name. I got the sourcing guy was available. Sourcingguy.com was available. TikTok at the sourcing guy. The Instagram was a little harder to get. And you start producing content and making content. And then things really took off maybe like four-ish months ago.
Yeah.
Finally, like I figured out the algorithm finally after all this time was I figured out what videos are going to work and the psychology behind them, and just became very obsessed with like how to make good videos that will work specifically in the niche. Because if you're producing content that's niche specific, it doesn't support the algorithm well. Because how the algorithm works is you post a video, they're going to go and show that video to a random slew of people, and majority of the people need to be interested to a certain extent to that video for the algorithm to be like, this is a good video. This is before you have followers, right? Because they don't know what your niche is. So they're just testing it out. So if you produce content like I used to be doing, where it's like, hey guys, today we're going to talk about harmonic system codes, and we're going to talk about freight forwarding and how to load your container up effectively. Yeah. 99% of people are just going to scroll through. Now, the 1% are going to be like, wow, like this is exactly what I was looking for. But that doesn't matter, right? Even though that's your market, if you don't get the eyeballs, if the product isn't pushed or the video isn't pushed to hundreds of thousands of people, you're not going to get in front of the 1% that really, really cares, that matters. So it was a shift in understanding that I need to make sourcing related content that hits the interest of the everyday consumer. And that was producing a lot more content about brands, like well-known brands, and the manufacturing and production behind those brands. That was where that shift really helped.
Okay.
And then once that started working, then you can go and post a little more on the niche side of things, and build more of build trust within the audience.
Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting. It's like, you need the eyeballs, like you said, and you need to play the game. And then once they're in, you can then give them the value they need. How's it been when you're kind of known for being hyper niche and you're known as the sourcing guy? What's that experience like? Because look, social media kind of is it's a marketing tool. It also is a reflection of you. Yeah. It's used for many things. It's not just one thing. I mean, you can use it for many things. Yeah. You can also be pretty broad with it. So yeah, I'm just kind of like curious, do you kind of view it just as a marketing channel, or do you find that you've kind of wanted to do something else with it as well? Because it's you. It is you. And then maybe people don't know you fully, or they treat you a bit differently because you're like hyper niche. How's that experience been?
I think, well, most of the time when people know me from social media and they meet me in person, they always say, wow, you are so much nicer and like more approachable than what you look like on social media, which I'm like, shit, okay, maybe I need to switch things up a bit. Because I'm pretty relatively serious. I tried to make a big YouTube video now where I was a lot more playful and showing my real character and stuff like that. But so
I saw that as you were playing around with the girls.
Yeah,
I watched that one. Yeah.
So I think that being niche is so important.
Yeah.
Like I'm very happy with being the sourcing guy. Like I don't have to be, because people have such short attention spans and they're able to go and immediately kind of like associate me with sourcing. So it helps a ton with like, not just the follower, just anyone that knows me or knows my channel knows exactly what I do. So it's very easy for them to forward my channel to other people who are within that niche or interest, and it's able to build a community a lot better. And then one of the best parts of like personal brand has not necessarily been like, we get tons of lead flow and it's been really good for the agency from a marketing perspective, but it's also just opened up so many doors. And that's something I didn't expect as much when I started it. It's like the people I was able to meet, and like I had so many people, for example, because I relatively chronically online, I doom scrolling, you know. A lot of people that like I really looked up to within like the creator community, with millions of followers, and like, and then now I'm friends with these people, right? And there's like this crazy shift of like, okay, now I'm like running your supply chain, and like I used to binge watch your videos, now we're hopping on calls and like we're working together, and it's not just like it's a very almost even playing field from like a respect perspective, because it's like I'm providing you this service. But meanwhile, I'm like fangirling on the inside sometimes of being like, this is so crazy to me. So that's been probably the coolest part of it, of this whole entire journey, is like now like I'm just surrounded by really, really cool people.
So true. I mean, even to the extent I've experienced that, it's like these people who you looked up to, they become your friends. It's like, you're like, oh, this is weird. Like I used to like watch all your videos, and like now we know each other. It's like, it's cool, but mate, it's like, it shows to anyone. It's like, play the fucking game. Get in the game, start playing, like with all your flaws, with everything, just get started, because people will pay attention. Like, as long as you're coming in with good intention and like you're adding value, people are like, oh, you're playing that game too? Also, let's play the game together.
Exactly.
Like it's just get in, start playing. I think one of the insights that I had to get over myself and kind of get my ego out of the way, and you nailed this. It's like people have a short attention span. People need to know you for something. They need to like, they don't have time in a second to be like, oh, who's this complex human being? Like, let me find out all about him. You need to give them like, it's like the breadcrumbs, right? It's like, hey, this is the thing that I do, or this is what my core value. There we are. And it's like, this is a shift that I've gone through recently. It's like, the branding, it's like, hey, here's the front of house. This is like, yes, there's more to me than that. Get your ego out of the way, Tom. Like, because I'm like, oh, I'm so complex and interesting. Like, how can I communicate that in like one video? You can't. But it's like, okay, give people hey, this is the main thing. This is the main value. And then the whole purpose of like having a YouTube, having a podcast, having a fucking coaching offer, it's like, you want to come closer into my world? You like this? Okay. Well, here's the next way. Come into the Telegram channel. Okay. Well, here's a YouTube video. You can spend an hour with me. And it's like, the kind of short form content. It's like, right, play the game, give the breadcrumb trails. Do you like this? Okay. You can kind of work your way. If you want to come closer to my world, it's going to cost money as you come closer, but like, but you can, and there's a journey. And like, that was a big shift for me. It's like, oh yeah, it doesn't have to like everything be communicated all at once and just like, there you are. Get it in. How have you found networking? How powerful has networking been for you? Have you got any tips or kind of insights around building strong relationships and what that looks like?
Yeah. I mean, I think networking is, I'd say if we look at revenue within my business, majority of revenue has come from referrals, not necessarily from cold outreach or social media or any of that kind of thing. Now, social media plays a part in the referrals, in building your personal brand, but it's the networking, it's the people that you meet, it's like the personal relationships that really like brings in the dollars, if that's what you're gonna look at. But also from like a relationship perspective, you want to be networking, you want to make friends. I feel that's what life's about. It's these relationships.
Yeah.
And I think that social media is the most powerful networking tool you can ever have, because it allows you to keep tabs with all these people. You can meet someone at a coffee shop in Kopangan, 4 years ago, and you follow them on Instagram and you stay connected with them in some way. And especially if you, like for me, I met this one person in Kopangan 4 years ago, but now they've been seeing my journey and they're following along. Maybe they're not posting, but I'm posting, and it's keeping the relationship going. And then who knows? Then like 4 years later, they reach out because they have this big project or whatever it is, or they're in town and let's go grab a drink, whatever it is. But if you don't take advantage of social media, you're hindering your like relationships, I think.
That's such a good insight, man. And it's like you're nurturing them and you're maintaining it just digitally. It's so funny, man. I had some guy come up to me, cool guy, at a party on Saturday, and he's like, "Oh, bro, I saw the shift in your content and stuff. I saw how you changed. I've been following what you've been doing." And I was like, cool, man. I was like, yeah, sweet. But the mate, it was so funny. He was like, it was a funny interaction. He was like, "Bro, I make money and I shake hands." He's like, "If you ever need a tiger, give me 8 weeks, I can get you a tiger." I was like, I've never thought about this before, but maybe I would like a tiger. Yeah. But it's just interesting, right? That's a silly example. I'm not going to buy a tiger, but it's like someone now wants to help because of either value or just kind of feeling like they know you. Someone can open up more doors for you. So with that being said, and understanding that social media is a really powerful tool, personal brand is important for the network. What happened with having your account suspended, and how did that affect things? And what went on there?
It was weird. I got banned from Instagram for 3 weeks, and then banned again after that for another week. I was shadow banned for the longest time. I finally just got out of the shadow ban. Sick. I didn't have any backup accounts. I really didn't think this was ever going to happen. Essentially, Montclair went after one of my videos and got us kicked off, and it felt like it felt like my voice was taken away to an extent, my ability to communicate, because I was relying so heavily on Instagram to communicate with people and stay in contact and all that kind of stuff. Now I didn't have the phone numbers of all these people and all my friends, and I wasn't able to see what was going on, and I wasn't able to touch base with any. I felt just disconnected from the world. It allowed me to reflect on how attached I am to this personal brand and this presence and this means of communication. So, it was almost like a good little detox and remembering to not fully rely on this, but also it is what it is. Yeah. This is my life. And I've spent now years of my life and, tens of thousands of dollars on producing all this content. So it was crazy.
What's the lessons? What are you going to change moving forward? What's the lessons there?
The lessons are, I was flying a little close to the sun, I think, with some of my content as well.
Icarus, yeah.
Yeah, a little Icarus there. So I have to be a little more careful, unfortunately, with the kind of content I produce, because there are forces that are more powerful than me that are able to go and kind of push the way that they want to push. Set up contingencies and backups. So having I have a personal backup account. I'm moving a lot more people over to an email list, pushing over, creating our community now, and more of our offers. So people are able to connect with me and stay in touch with us without being directly through Instagram, not relying on that kind of single source.
Yeah. How have you found using Instagram as, obviously, how long ago was it you launched the coaching offer?
Maybe 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, yeah. So how's that process been with, how's your audience responded? How has kind of that been as a funnel, and just, the general setup there? How have you found that?
Yeah, it's relieving to an extent to have that offer, because what was happening was we get hundreds and hundreds of people every month reaching out saying, "Isaac, help me source this product." And we can't help everyone, And to be honest, we shouldn't be helping you at the scale that people are typically at when they reach out to us. We're essentially, it's how I look at it is either you can I can give you a fish, I can sell you a fish, or I can teach you how to fish.
Yeah.
And especially if you if you're gonna go into the fish business, right? Like you should know how to fish, you know? Like don't fully rely on someone else because you need to have that control. You need to have the understanding of your product, of your supply chain. If you're relying on an agent, whether it be me or someone else, and you don't understand the fundamentals of sourcing and fundamentals of product, you will not have success. Like it's very hard for you to have success. And you see it so much with like drop shipping guys and e-com guys. They go and they scale up offers because they're really good at marketing. But so many of them end up going bankrupt. They'll do millions of dollars and they'll lose everything because they make stupid small mistakes from a fundamentals perspective within their supply chain and with their product. And it breaks it out and they lose everything. And it's like, if you just learn some of the basic fundamentals, like I'm talking like an hour of content you watch, like especially like through my course, like 95% of the issues that I see people make like are literally just like an hour of education of just like, don't do this. This is where you're going to mess up. Like just understand the fundamentals. So what I'm trying to do now with the offer, how I look at it like very positively is I'm able to like give people a solution of being like, I'm going to help you source products, but I'm going to give you the keys to do it yourself and not rely on someone like me and empower you because it's a very valuable skill for the rest of your life. And then once you're ready, once you're at the larger scale, well, I can really make an impact, right? That's like the pyramid, right? When you're building your org charts, like you should, as a CEO, you should always be working on like the most important problems. It's like, okay, well, how can my agency be on top of that pyramid? Only helping make the biggest decisions and, you know, really making the biggest impact for every, you know, hour spent on the program. So because we're pushing a lot more people to like do it themselves, we can focus our time on our current customers and focus our time on like the really, really big projects, right? Working on, you know, 7-8 figure brands and figuring out how can we completely redesign your supply chain to increase efficiencies and maybe cut COGS by 10%, right? But we're talking about $5 million in purchasing. So you're saving $500,000 and that might be over 10 hours of work, right? For us, those are the kind of things that I want to be doing as a sourcing guy. And that was kind of always the plan was how can I be the best in the world at global sourcing and manufacturing? And I'm not saying I'm there, but how can I make that my lifelong mission to just educate myself and be on the ground and just stay hyper-focused on just this sourcing thing so that I can just become better and better and better over time. 26 now. What am I going to be like at 35, at 40, at 50? What's am I going to be understanding? And then how can I solve really, really, really big problems to make the maximal impact? And that's kind of goes into like the whole like purpose and focus thing that we were talking about earlier. It's, you know, if you're not hyper focused on being the absolute best at one thing, you're never going to get to that point where, because there's going to be someone else who all they're doing is they're going and they're only focused on that one thing and they're going to work even harder than you, right? They're not going to be living in Bali. They're going to be, they're going to be locked up in New York grinding. And so that's what I want to do. And I know that to do that, like I need to really have my priorities straight. But I also want to like impact the most amount of people as possible. So that's why like I generally believe in our offer, in our coaching program, and our courses, and all the free education we have, and the paid education that we have, because I think it's gonna help me grow and then help everyone else grow as well.
That's awesome, man. I felt that. Just an interesting one there. With your agency clients, do you do any coaching with them at all, or is it completely done for you? No,
it's coaching as well. So I mean, it depends. So now things are shifting a lot more, where it's like we're coming in and like consulting as well as helping with like redoing the supply chain. That's why like we're having like higher ticket coaching offers and that kind of thing, because I think that they need to understand the fundamentals as well. So it's not just like, for example, it's not saying, hey, let's go and move manufacturing over to Egypt for this product because we say so and the price is lower. It's like, let's have like a 30-minute conversation. I'm going to explain to you the geopolitical state of Egypt and the tariff codes into the US and the supply chain of cotton and the issues with Chinese cotton specifically and the benefits of utilizing, you know, India-based cotton and the labor costs and all these different pieces, right? So like, let me educate you so you understand the fundamentals of why we're making this decision. We can make a decision together. And then we can reap the rewards of making this big shift in your, you know, sourcing.
Oh, you mentioned geopolitics. I found out that you were in a debating society.
I was in not a debating society, but I hosted like a geopolitical trip in the Middle East to help educate people on the conflict there.
Okay. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what was the motivation for doing that? And what was that? And why is that an interest of yours as well?
Well, I was asked, actually. It wasn't like an initial, it was something I was very passionate about. But I was asked by like the higher ups. I mean, University of Florida is where I went to school, and I'm Jewish, and it's like the most amount of Jews in the world in any university in the world is at University of Florida, weirdly enough, but it's just because of sheer volume. I think there's like 10,000. So we have a really large Jewish population, and so there's a lot of really great programs around Israel. But then we also have a lot of students who are not Jewish that might be very anti-Israel, and there's a lot of within the entire conflict. I think that there's just a lot of things on social media, and there's a lot of misinformation out there. So they decided to kind of create this program or this trip that is like an unbiased trip to specifically take the top student leaders who are non-Jewish and typically leaning very anti-Israel to Israel and to the West Bank and Palestine to meet with both sides of the conflict and simply just observe with their own eyes what's going on there, and then be able to come back to their constituents, come back and have an honest opinion and a truthful, perspective on what's going on. So we took like all the student body presidents and the heads of the Muslim, student associations and the Christian student associations, and majority of people were like super anti-Israel coming onto this trip. Yeah. I had to pretend I was one of the Jewish delegates or whatever it is. So it was like 3 of us that were like kind of hosting the trip. And I had a lot of education on this topic in the past. My family is from Israel. We were originally from Morocco. We were kind of kicked out of Morocco. And it was a really, really great experience. But for example, I had to like take off my Jewish chain and pretend to be Christian. And we went into Palestine, right? Or West Bank. And we met with the heads of the Palestinian Authority. We met with the mayors of Ramallah, the mayors of Bethlehem. We met with the heads of like the pro-Palestine conflict and journalists. We were walking through the streets and just met people our age. And we were able to get a really, really great perspective on like, where is all this hatred coming from? And what's like the root cause, and everyone was able to go and make their own decisions over the conflict, and then talk to everyone once they got back to campus. And I think it was a really powerful trip.
That's amazing. Where do you think the hatred is coming from there? Like, because obviously no one likes to see anyone die from anywhere, and there's a lot of blood being spilled. So yeah, I'm curious as much as you want to talk about, because I know it's obviously contentious and not to do with sourcing at all. Yeah. But I'm just, it's obviously in popular consciousness at the moment. People see one thing on social media and now they have the deepest point of view one way, and then, everything's nuanced, right? Nothing's really black or white. Just curious, any insights you have there?
And just follow the money.
Follow the money.
That's the honest truth behind the whole conflict. If you follow the money, you can see the benefit of having the conflict, especially for the people at the top of Hamas and the heads of the Palestinian Authority. If there's conflict, there is huge amounts of money that goes into the organizations from aid from around the world. And that is being funneled to the top of Hamas and the leaders there. If you just look into who the leaders of Hamas are, they're billionaires and they live in Qatar at the Four Seasons, right? Billionaires, like worth billions and billions of dollars. And that's very unfortunate, because how the trickle down works is that where the hatred is coming from deep rooted misinformation and a lack of proper education, especially like for the last, let's say 20 years since Israel, for example, pulled out of Gaza completely, I believe in 2005. Now they had 20 years to go and build a new generation of people and have full control and full autonomy in that region. So I saw when I met with the head of communications for the Palestinian Authority, to give you an idea, and I was able to see the types of videos and education that was shown in the school systems, right? And when you're a young person, you're in school and you're looking up to that person, whatever they're saying has to be the truth. And unfortunately, the videos and the educational programs were rooted around hatred and rooted around victimization versus, hey, this is how we're going to achieve peace, right? It's no, everything that bad has ever happened to you is because of Israel, right? And I think that if you are teaching hatred at a young age, then it's very hard to, especially over now we're seeing the escalation of all these young people now 20 years later, now being of this age where they can become more radicalized and make an impact like on October 7th. And now it was about exactly like a year ago.
Yeah. Yesterday.
You can see what can happen. So long story short, but the reason why all this is happening is because if there's no conflict, there's no aid.
Yeah.
There's no money flowing in. And every time and within the conflict, an issue is that again, I have different perspectives on this, but this is my it's undeniable that the Hamas infrastructure is built within civilian areas, right? It's built under in the Rafah and in the different hospital systems and schools. That's where the infrastructure is. So they're utilizing the people as human shields. So if Israel needs to go and take out the infrastructure, the terror infrastructure, there are civilians that might get stuck in the crossfire. And every single time someone dies, they're able to go and utilize that and maybe generate from one video of a baby dying, and then they only died because they put it in infrastructure.
Yeah.
Maybe they generate $50 million from that one video.
Yeah.
And I think that if we are able to re-educate people and focus around peace and remove the huge incentive for terror as like a money gaining machine, I think majority of people in this world want peace. They want happiness. They want to live together. And I think that's where the conflict is
I think it's
from.
Very valuable insight, like follow the money, right? I don't pretend to have like an opinion because it's not affected my life and it's not something I have like family involved with. And I can't imagine either side having experienced the amount of death and pain. I just understand that there's pain in that region. There is so much pain and turmoil. And I imagine there's bad actors everywhere. You go up anywhere in government, there's bad actors, right? And I think your insight of like follow the money is for anything really, like any of these kind of geopolitical events. It's like, right, but who's making money out of this situation?
Yeah.
And what are their incentives? And yeah, it's really interesting. I'm kind of curious, like, how do you see that playing out anywhere else? And sort of like, obviously it's like the election coming up, all of that stuff now. And, there's a lot of unrest in the world. A lot of people aren't happy politically. They don't feel represented. And it's always the kind of the little guy. And it's the normal people who always suffer, people up top, they're making money. I'm kind of curious, like, how much do you pay attention to that globally? How much does that affect you as an entrepreneur? And how much do you let it affect you? Do you think it's important to have a pulse on these things? Do you see any like wider conspiracies a lot of people say, look, we're controlled by fear. And I definitely buy into that, man. Like if you want to control people, you control them by fear. It's a tale as old as time. It's taught throughout the Bible. You control through fear. Love is boundless. Like, right, the opposite side of fear is love. It's not controlling at all. Unconditional love has no control. But everyone has to be in that frequency for that to work. But yeah, I'm curious, like, how much do you pay attention to kind of like what's going on? How much do you let it affect you? Do you think it's important to keep a pulse on things? A lot of people are like, oh, I don't watch the news. And I just focus on myself. I don't necessarily buy into that. I'm curious what your perspectives are there.
think it's, especially in Bali, it's really easy to not watch the news and live in your bubble and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's, people will say, yeah, it's completely fine until it affects them, right?
Yeah.
Until it's like my family in Israel getting bombed, you know, and me knowing that who is elected as president of the US is going to make a significant impact into the security of my family. That's why I care. You know, do I care about the day to day and this and that, and you know, all the trash talking and no, like I think that most of it, right, is just generated by like it's also follow the money. It's like if you make clickbaity things and you make hatred and you make articles about XYZ that's going to get clicks, get eyeballs, that's how you make money, right? These media agents, these media companies are dying. Traditional media is dying, so they have to rely on like the shock factor and around hatred to get people fighting and get engagement to make dollars.
Yeah.
So you can ignore a lot of it if you see that, but you have to also have a general pulse on things, because if you don't have a pulse on things and everyone says, you know, I'm just not going to watch the news, I'm not going to care, that's how you get into these bad situations.
100%, man. Man, I really, it's one of the things people are like, oh, you know, just focus on yourself. And it's like, yeah, until it like encroaches on your life. You look at like the C-19 stuff, it's like, okay, oh, suddenly now everyone's freedom is restricted.
Yeah.
Okay. Were we all paying attention to what was going on there? Were we all educated on that? Did we bother to educate ourselves on that afterwards? Maybe ask yourself that question. And my kind of like perspective here, and like I throw this back at people, like knowledge is power, right? Gnosis, right? All of like kind of secret societies, all teachings over time, the people who are the most powerful are the people who are enlightened. It's like enlightenment through knowledge. You know, you look at like not all of these Gnostic texts. It's knowledge passed down through generations. Jewish communities are very, very good at this. You preserve knowledge, and particularly people are like, the Jews are rich. And it's like, yeah, but I don't know what, I think you have a law where it's like you do business with other Jews.
I wouldn't say it's a law, but it's like a fundamental understanding. It's community and tribe oriented, of keep it within the tribe, because what they've seen through the generations is that if you act as a large community and you stay together, right, there is more growth. And if you are divided, right, there's less money to be made, there's less strength in division. So that's why we have Shabbat as being like a really, really fundamental part of our religion, of like, you come together and you have dinner, you break bread, you have no technology, there's no work, there's no extra stimuli, and you just spend time as a family. And you invite other families with you, you get the whole family together, you break bread. From that to like the education, from the Jewish education is very focused around not just like the history, but also like how to be, I mean, a lot of religions, but I say especially Judaism is a lot about like how to be a good business person as well, and how to have that, you know.
Isn't there some sort of law where it's like, even if it costs slightly more, you do business with someone else in the Jewish community?
There might be. There might be.
That makes sense to like as a community. Like it makes sense to preserve wealth as a community. Like I understand it. I think like kind of like the point I had with kind of this whole knowledge thing, and it goes back to fear, right? So you are controllable if you're scared of something. If you fear something, you are controllable. So that's why like the media perpetuates fear. It makes you controllable. So how do you become not scared or not fearful? It's through education. It's through knowledge. So with having a pulse, because sometimes people are like, oh, you're really focused on what's going on and this. It's like, yeah, like I want to know what's fucking going on. Because if I can understand it, it has no control over me. If I can understand it, and I mean, I personally, I believe in something higher. I personally believe that this is all a big experiment to learn who we are and to teach us to feel love within ourselves and to feel love for others. And like, if you, you know, I think to like a lot of Christians as well, if you believe in God, if you believe that there is this higher power who is unconditionally loving, and that's the words in the text, unconditionally, without condition, no judgment, unconditionally loving. If you believe that this reality is kind of, the underlying frequency of this reality is unconditional love, what are you fucking scared of? What are you fucking scared of? You haven't got anything to be scared of if you actually believe it. But if you buy into like not knowing about things, if you let the fear perpetuate, through the news, through the election, and you don't actually understand what's going on. When you understand it and you realize that it's kind of like to be controlled by fear, you look at everything going on with P. Diddy at the moment, you look at everything going on with like Epstein, like it's almost laughable. When you compare that to like pure unconditional love that we can all experience and feel within us, what are you fucking scared of? But by knowing it, it's not just a case of like vibrating and aligning your chakras and being like, oh, I don't care about any of that shit. It's like, well, if I understand it, it has no power over me anymore. Now I can make decisions without that thing massively swaying me one way or the other because I'm connected to something more powerful than that. All right, okay, they do that shit. Yeah, like I might die. All right, like you don't have any fear, and I think it's an important shift for particularly a lot of like the spiritual community as well, which we experience here in Bali. It's like a big side of knowledge is ignored, and I have a bit of a I think it's something worth pointing out. And being like, hey, if you don't understand these things, they do have control over you, just as much as if you buy into the fear. Like it's this kind of the same thing. Have you been following the P. Diddy stuff?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
And like it's very different, but like I think it's funny to pull it back of kind of the sourcing.
Yeah.
People are very scared of sourcing. They feel like they have very little control, but I find sourcing to be very easy.
Yeah,
because I just know it, right? You just learn the fundamentals. You understand it, just like any conflict. You're not scared of the conflict because you understand it truly. You understand sourcing, you understand the fundamentals, you understand where things go wrong. I'm not scared to work with factories overseas. I'm confident.
Yes, knowledge is power. This is why education is like so important, and getting education from like the right source. And well, actually, not from the right source, like being your own source of education, running everything through your filter. I think it's so important. How have you done that with yourself? How have you educated yourself? How do you know when information is good information, and how do you maybe discern good actors from bad actors? We all cover kind of in this online space. There's a lot of bad actors. I've experienced that recently, actually, of people realizing that, there's some fucking psychopaths in this space, and they will take advantage. How have you kind of developed, discernment to know what is good education, who I can trust, or do you not trust anyone? You run everything through yourself. How's that been for you?
I have some level of trust, but I think it's also like you follow the money, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, what is the root reason for this person to make the decision that they're making, say the things that they're saying? Why are they, what's their goal?
Yeah.
What's the reason? Like, why are all these politicians promoting Kamala Harris? Like, what's the deep rooted, like, there's something behind it.
Yep.
Right. So if you just look at everything objectively and try to put yourself in the shoes, just like you put yourself in the shoes of your employee when you figure out, why did you mess up? Why did this mistake? Put yourself in the shoes. Why are you saying this specific thing? Like, why are you educating on this? Why are you telling me this? Put you in your shoes. Why do you think you're doing that? You look at everything objectively like that, it's very easy to kind of figure out what's bullshit and what's not.
I think it's such like, if there's someone who's like giving information and they're not batshit crazy, but like they have nothing to gain, you do have to ask. And like, some people are actually crazy, but like, okay, if this person has nothing to gain and everything to lose from sharing this, okay, I'm not going to take it as gospel, but it's definitely worth exploring, right? And it's crazy, man. Like a lot of these crazy people from 10 years ago are now sounding not so crazy. It's pretty wild, right? Do you have any creators on social media? Like, you spoke about keeping a pulse on the news. Do you have anyone that you follow, anyone you think is interesting and covers things quite well?
So bad with names. Trying to think about who some of those creators are.
That's why podcasts are so powerful, right, man? Because like, if you can take your fucking ego out of it and you can go, hey, I'm this flawed human being who's experienced various things. Here's some perspectives I have. Please detach it from me. Please don't come after me and attack me for these perspectives. This was my life experience, things I've learned. If I can detach myself from that and be like, hey, they might be wrong, but I'm going to put these out here. This is what I think. Hey, can you throw your shit out here? And can we like make it fight? And may the best idea win. And then am I open afterwards to be like, oh, yeah, that is a better idea. Okay, cool. I learn. And I think that for some reason, we kind of got to this stage where it's like, you have to be like, the barrier to entry is perfection. You have to have done everything right in your whole life for your opinion to be mattered, to be kind of considered. And it's like, no, and that's why like platforms like X are so important. It's like, can you throw the thing out there?
Yeah.
Let it fight. If it's a good idea and it's truth, it's going to survive. You've got nothing to be scared of. And if it's not, you learn. But then the issue is, people are attacked for having the wrong or getting it wrong. And now it's like, that's because you're a bad person and that's because you're this and you're a racist. And it's like, shit, I just like, I'm a human.
100%.
You know, man? Yeah, awesome. Bro, how can people get closer into your world? How can they start thinking like you think? How can they, find out more about you and absorb more of you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the sourcing guy.
If you hadn't already realized yet.
Yeah, at the sourcing guy on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. I'm not at the sourcing guy on X yet. I haven't gotten the handle yet, but just look up the sourcing guy. You know, how to get closer to me. I mean, watch my stuff, shoot me a DM. Like, I'm happy to chat with you. I have now my whole sourcing school and sourcing program to give people like the guidance on how to do this themselves. So like the whole offer is you get access to our exact like blueprint and systems of how we source products at our agency so that you don't have to hire a sourcing agent. You just do it yourself and contain all the margin. We give you our database of the best factories around the world that me and the team spent, almost a decade building. So you can easily then take the systems, plug and play into amazing factories, and you get weekly coaching calls. So I'm able to go answer more questions and really solve all your problems through that whole process, and then get access to the community and more content. And I think that that's like the kind of system I built there within it is giving people like the tools that they need to really have confidence and then go and do it themselves, not be reliant on anyone else.
Right, that's awesome. Final thought, and I'd like to ask people this, is if you could kind of gift one belief or one way of thinking to anyone listening and just kind of install a belief into someone, what would that belief be and why?
It's that you're never going to be like amazing at anything when you get started, and you're never going to have that amazing idea necessarily. Like, the amazing opportunities, the amazing ideas, or getting amazing at anything all comes from just doing. So like, I started my company selling cell phone fans that plug into the bottom of your phone at college parties on campus, and that turned into a global sourcing and supply chain agency. But it's about me, like, it's about starting the business and starting the content and just consistently being open to new ideas and pivoting and changing and pivoting. You find the best opportunities not out in the open, but in the specific niches. You find the small problems to solve and the impact that you're able to make. So I think that there's a lot of value in getting a job, in an industry that you think is very interesting out of college. If you're not making anything, work for other people, understand a specific space, educate yourself in a specific area, because that's where you're going to find the real money. People would go and they try to I'm going to go and revolutionize this X industry, but you don't know anything about that industry. Like, instead of being so, you should really just be a lot more, micro in the impact you're going to make.
Soak in the details. Bro, this has been awesome. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Bro.
Great.
How was that for you, man?
Awesome.